Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to start looking at Jupiter's upcoming entrance into Cancer. This is something that I've previewed on my channel a few times over the past few months, but it's really going to be our focus for the rest of this week. I went over all of the transits of the week yesterday, if you missed those. It's a relatively quiet week compared to next Monday's entrance of Jupiter into Cancer, so we're going to take this week to really begin preparing ourselves for that planetary ingress. Boy, there's been just one after another too. You know, Neptune into Aries, Saturn into Aries, now Jupiter into Cancer. Pretty soon it'll be Uranus moving into Gemini. So I like to take a little extra time to reflect on these transits before they arrive, preparing our souls, preparing our physical lives. So we're going to take a look at this from a few different perspectives as the week goes on. That will include some horoscopes as well. Today I want to talk about what it might mean for Jupiter in this very feminine sign of the moon to be directing our destiny for the next year. Jupiter will spend its time in Cancer from June of this year of 2025 through 2026. It takes Jupiter about 12 years to go through the full zodiac, 1 year per sign roughly. And so what does it mean when Jupiter in the sign of the moon, temple of the goddess, is sort of directing our destiny over the course of the next year? We're going to look at that today through an interesting exploration of Jupiter in Cancer that I think you'll enjoy. So that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. It's my hope that this channel will be a place for your daily spiritual practice of astrology, a place that it can be, that you can approach astrology from the standpoint of spirituality and daily practice. Whatever the case might be, your subscribing means a lot and helps our channel grow. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. We have a few promotions coming up. I am super, super excited to almost be ready for the start of our next program, and also some other events coming up. Let me take you over to the website and show you. If you go to the events page, click on in-person events. We've got a summer solstice gathering happening Saturday, June 21st from 6 to 8:30 p.m. The Grapevine Collective at New City Center. It's just an opportunity to get together as a community, reflect on the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, and do a little meditating and sharing. Time in community is always nice. So RSVP to join, it's free. We host these events through the generosity of your support of the Kickstarter every year. So that's free, just RSVP so we know you're coming. Go to the speaker series and you will see another series of free talks facilitated by the Kickstarter. These are taking place June 7th, 8th, and 15th with Gemini Brett, Marjorie Cottrell, and Krista Hamilton. Great talks on topics in astrology, prenatal eclipses, looking at Saturn in Aquarius, looking at the decans in astrology and tarot. So really, really nice talks coming up. I also recommend that if you can't make them live, you still register because you get the recording afterward. And then if you go to the events page, you'll see the live talks. My webinar for June is Uranus and Gemini, trine Pluto and Aquarius when new objects appear in the sky. So that's June 19th. If you register, you'll get the recording link if you can't attend live, as always. Go over to the courses page, click on first year course. At the end of today's talk, after I'm done, there's about a 12-minute informational video tagged on to the end of today's content so you can learn more about it. Classes start June 22nd, excuse me. 30 classes on the year. I lead all of them, but in between major units of study, we have breakout study sessions led by our staff and tutors. There's a forum discussion staffed with tutors. We have a lot of breakout community that happens around these programs. So if you're looking to make friends and have community around deepening immersion into ancient astrology, this course, you're gonna absolutely love it. At the bottom, you'll find the enrollment options. One thing I want to make sure you're aware of is that we offer need-based tuition. So if you're someone who would like to take the course, but you're working on a fixed budget or limited income, you're between jobs, you're on disability, whatever the case might be, we like to make sure that our courses are accessible because we don't feel that this topic should be only accessible for people of a certain socioeconomic status or income bracket. We believe that, something like this should be as accessible as possible. So check that out, apply for it. There's plenty of room for you to still use that before the course begins. And again, after the end of today's talk, you'll find more information about the upcoming program. I'll be doing an informational video about the horary course that also starts in June. Year 2 also starts in June. You need to be at least enrolled in year 1 before you can do that. So I spend less time promoting those. But anyway, all right, let's take a look at the real-time clock and get rolling here with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. So today is Tuesday, June 3rd, and we are rapidly approaching Jupiter's ingress into Cancer. If I take this forward just a little bit, we'll find that Monday, June 9th, later in the day, Jupiter is officially in the sign of Cancer by about 6 in the evening Central Time. So that ingress is just, because it's just a week off, we're going to spend some time talking about it today. Now, if we fast forward this a year, you're going to see that by June of 2026, we're getting Jupiter into Leo. That's happening by the very end of June 2026. So it's a full year that we get this Jupiter transit in the sign of Cancer. To me, that is always worth spending a little bit of extra time on, because when you're spending a whole year with a planet or more, in the case of Saturn or Uranus or Neptune or Pluto, they really become guides and teachers, directors of the path of destiny for a significant period of our life. A year goes by quickly. I've been reflecting on Jupiter's final moments in Gemini recently, and some of you have done that along with me on the channel, and you know how quickly the time flies, but still how powerful the lessons can be. And so what I want to do today is I want to talk about one of the most significant roles that Jupiter plays. And the reason that I've titled this talk "When the Goddess Directs Our Destiny" is because so much of Jupiter in the sign of Cancer has to do with the directing of destiny through the lens of the moon and this very feminine, watery sign that can I think very adequately be described by a variety of different goddesses. So I just call it the goddess, but the feminine energy is very specific and unique in the sign of Cancer. And Jupiter in this sign will therefore guide us through that lunar lens. The reason that I use the word destiny with Jupiter is very intentional. I want to talk briefly about the teleology of Jupiter. This is something that I have talked about for a long time because of the way that Jupiter is written and spoken about by ancient astrologers in both the East and the West. But I was really, really encouraged recently when I read a new book that Liz Green recently released or published called By Jove. And it's an exploration of Jupiter. One of the things I love about that text, by the way, if you choose to read it, you can pick it up on Amazon, is that this By Jove on the meaning of astrological Jupiter that she published spends a long time talking about what Jupiter significations are that go beyond words like expansion or just like good luck or something like that. It's not uncommon in my astrological practice to see people going through Jupiter transits that are sometimes difficult. And then, because of all of the almost like hyper positivity that you hear surrounding Jupiter, you're a little surprised when a Jupiter transit comes by and maybe you feel that there's been an over-promising and under-delivering, or worse, you've gone through something that's been legitimately challenging and you're left scratching your head going, "Oh, I thought Jupiter was just going to give me a promotion and some money and or something like that." Jupiter is a benefic, and there's good reason to think about Jupiter as a benefic. But in this book, in case you're interested, Liz Green spends a really good amount of time talking about why Jupiter is sometimes difficult and how we should understand Jupiter, much more broadly as a planet that has many more significations than just like expansion and good luck. I want to briefly talk. This is something that I've talked about in many places previously, but I was also really encouraged to find Liz Green talking about it in the same way. Sometimes when you see a masterful astrologer that you consider an elder talking about something in the way that you've been led to understand it yourself through experience and through your own studies, it's kind of like, okay, good, I'm on the right track. I've been on the right track with this. That's really what her book did for me. And I'm sure it might do the same for you. If you've had some intuitions about Jupiter, it's just really nice to see someone so masterful laying it all out. Anyway, one of the words that she uses to talk about Jupiter is the word teleology. Now, I have a background in philosophy. My bachelor's degree was in philosophy, and so I'm very familiar with this word, but you may not be. And so let's take a moment to think to talk about what this word means and why she associates it with Jupiter, and also why ancient astrologers, broadly speaking, associated the same idea with the word Jupiter. So the word teleology comes from Greek, and it, in some ways, if you go to study philosophy ever, you'll find that teleology is like a kind of almost like a branch of philosophy. It comes from the Greek word telos, which means something like the end, the purpose, the goal, and then teleology, the logia part, like astrologia, is the study of, or the implication is that this is the study of, or the logic of, or I mean, the word logos has a pretty mystical meaning, really. It's sort of like the gnosis surrounding something. This is the truth of something, or the the insights from ancient astrologers would be that if you're studying astrology, you're studying sort of like the mind of the universe. So that word logos is pretty deep and mystical. But teleology would mean the study of something's end, purpose, goal, or even its meaning, insofar as its meaning has a purposeful nature that will play out in time here in the material world. So anyway, that's my brief understanding of the etymology as far as I'm aware, and just doing some brushing up on it, before I did this talk today. But the reason that this word is associated with Jupiter is very important. Jupiter is, in a sense, exalted in the sign of Cancer because the material universe is thought to be born through this gateway of the zodiac. One very beautiful image that comes through the sign of Cancer, which was called the gateway of mankind, and the sign of Cancer sat on the ascendant of the Thema Mundi, which is the birth line of the chart of the cosmos itself. The reason for that is that at this time of the summer solstice, symbolically seen from the standpoint of the northern hemisphere, the sun's arc is highest in the sky, closest to the unchanging fixed pole star. And then from that point forward, it descends down into the earth. So that astronomical picture is associated with the descent of the logos, or the archetype, or the spirit, or the seed, or the source, into materiality, where the world gives birth through the sign of Cancer to itself. So it's an interesting picture in the sign of Cancer of spirit descending into matter. Because of that, the moon, who is thought to be the planet associated with the material world, and the fact that this material world is a reflection of the archetypal, or the divine, or the transcendental, that this world is a marriage of the transcendental with the immanent, or the transcendent and immanent, I should say. It's a beautiful symbol that the moon represents this material world with the cycles of change and life and birth and death, and the wheel of fortune itself, and the body embodiment itself, all associated with the moon. It's interesting to think that Jupiter is also exalted here and is a co-host of the sign. Why would that be? Jupiter also rules the sign of Sagittarius and the sign of Pisces. It's really important to note what's happening in the solar year in these two signs. In Sagittarius, we reach the deepest part of darkness in the solar year. And by the end of that process, the sun, in its arc in the sky, closest down to the earth, starts to sort of flip and turn upward. And so Jupiter is ushering the turning point from darkness to the return of light. Similarly, in the spring in the northern hemisphere, the sign of Pisces ushers the darkness, ushers the solar year from the half of the year constituted by more dark than light in the 24-hour period into the light half of the year, which takes place after Pisces ends at the beginning of Aries. So both of the Jupiter-ruled signs are midwifing light coming up out of the darkness and handing over to the light half of the year. In this sense, Jupiter is associated with there's an archetypal sense. You can see this in the I Ching, in Taoism, where there's a play of light and dark. And one of the things that light is doing is giving order, meaning, purpose, direction to darkness, so that If we had only darkness and no light, things would be out of balance, and vice versa. So it's not that darkness is always thought of as bad or evil, or its darkness has a much deeper and more sophisticated role to play than just that. But ushering the solar year from darkness into light gives us a returning, renewed sense of purpose, meaning that death, darkness, and the descent into the material world is not just chaos, is not just death and mortality, is not just suffering, because those are facets of darkness that come with the mortal experience of the material world. But there is something more taking place here, and the return to light is always the emblem of that meaning, purpose, and direction that life carries with it. So, not surprisingly, Jupiter is also exalted in the gateway of the cosmos itself, the gateway of mankind, the ascendant of the Thema Mundi, the sign of the moon, the temple of material embodied life that also has direction and purpose within it, that has a transcendental meaning, that has a transcendental source, that is coherent and meaningful and directive and purposeful. If we didn't have that, then we would have just a kind of material soup of chaos. So the yin needs the yang in this sense, and the yang needs the yin. It's not surprising that Jupiter was the ruler of the seed of life in sperm, whereas the moon was the planet associated with the womb and gestation and the diversity of life and care for it. Beautiful pairing in this sign. But the reason that we have the connection to Jupiter as a planet of teleology is because Jupiter is constantly providing us with that sense of meaning, purpose, direction, clarity, coherence, and unity. Philosophically, on an instinctual level, there's a felt sense that we have that life is trustworthy, that it's meaningful, that it has purpose, that my life has a direction. And when we are in quote unquote dark times, times that are chaotic, we often feel that we've lost that sense of faith, that felt sense of faith, which is rarely articulated on the level of philosophical certainty or intellectual certainty about how it all works or exactly where it's all going. But there is a very felt sense that we all have, and that when we lose, we desperately want back. Where am I going is the most basic question I get in astrology readings. Where am I going next? I can't see the path. That sense of there is a path, and that when you're on it, you sort of know it or feel it, is very Jupiterian. So Jupiter, as a moving planet in our lives, as a planet in our natal charts, provides us with a means by which we constantly create and recreate and deepen into our felt sense of purpose, direction, faith that life is meaningful and coherent. As Jupiter transits, it's also always providing us with that felt sense of meaning, direction, and purpose, although it's constantly evolving and changing just like we are. So now that we've kind of established a connection between Jupiter and the purposefulness or meaningfulness of life, and this is, of course, one of the big reasons why it's exalted in the sign that is considered to be the place where life itself is sort of born and midwifed into creation, the sign of the moon. Now we can understand why it's going to be a year in which the goddess, this is the moon's temple, this is a feminine temple that is associated with manifest life, not abstract, detached, logical or rational ideas, but embodied life. So we can now think about direction and purpose in the year to come as something the goddess is orchestrating. And by goddess, we mean the world of embodiment, the world of form, the world of relationships, of living beings, of life and death, of experience itself. So really a really beautiful but very deep Jupiter placement. I want to talk first about 4 different ways that Jupiter tends to deepen our understanding as it transits through a sign. And you can play with these and work with these on your own, meditate on them, journal with them if you want to. Number 1, notice, and you could do this in hindsight looking at Jupiter and Gemini in your chart over the past year, and you could do this actively as Jupiter's transiting through Cancer in the next year. Jupiter is going to give us a progressive understanding of life's purpose. And by life's purpose, I don't mean personal purpose. We're going to cover that later. I mean that it's like sometimes you find yourself standing, looking across like a grand landscape. Like maybe you go hiking and you reach the top of a great hill and you can see out for miles. And you sometimes in spaces like this, and I'll call them Jupiterian moments, you get some deeper felt sense that the existence of life has purpose, has meaning. That doesn't mean you know exactly what that meaning is or where that purpose is taking us, but you feel it, you sense it. Most wisdom traditions have told us that it's somewhat futile to try to circumscribe the mind of the universe. Like you don't necessarily want to understand or try to understand exactly what the meaning of life is or what its purpose is. But there are glimpses that we get into its purposefulness, into its directedness, into the sense that it's being guided. And so as Jupiter goes along in any year, I think if we are working actively with the placement of Jupiter in our birth charts, and by that I just mean keeping it in our awareness, then we stand to sort of, it's like we're holding out a little bowl, and we're going to receive some blessings that are going to be poured into that little bowl. The blessing will be a progressive understanding of life's purpose that is felt, that comes into us in an instinctual way that lives deep within. And it often happens through just synchronicities or through maybe something we start to understand a little bit better, or the somewhat hard to quantify or qualified feeling of growth. I'm growing. And along with it comes the sense that, yes, this is all part of a plan, part of a purpose. Now, I don't think we should ever use the sense of purpose or directedness of life to fend off periods of uncertainty or doubt. It's good to get lost sometimes. It's good to lose the plot. That's a part of it somehow, I think. But you know what it's like when you have that renewed sense of trusting that life itself has a purpose. Jupiter's always providing that through its transits. But the reason that Jupiter's not always just positive is because think about some of the more difficult experiences you've had in life that have helped you trust that life is purposeful, but you wouldn't necessarily describe as easy. Number 2, a progressive understanding of personal purpose. Now, this is a little bit more specific to the feeling that I myself have a destiny. I myself have a sacred code. I think, for example, of one of my favorite books by James Hillman, The Soul's Code. In that book, he talks about the acorn theory, the idea that the acorn has the image of the oak tree within it. So each of us have something like that. I think astrology gives us a really interesting glimpse into some of the schematics of the oak tree that each of us are here to become in some way. I don't like to be too literal with it. This is your blueprint. I like to think of it a little bit more as a kind of oracle that can provide meaningful images and glimpses of that teleology that's in our souls for this lifetime. But I'm careful not to get too attached or too literal about that, because I benefit more from a felt sense that I have personal purpose than, some concrete attachment to its literal details. That's just me. Anyway, progressive understanding of personal purpose happens as Jupiter transits through our charts, and through the study of the natal position of Jupiter too. That progressive understanding of personal purpose is here to fill us with the sense that you're learning, you're growing, you're here for certain reasons. And again, I would urge everyone to resist the temptation to try to catalog those or try to be on top of them or control them or ace them or, like it's an exam or something, but more so to just notice as Jupiter goes along, things happen that confer upon me a sense of the purposefulness of my life, of the fact that I am here and that life itself is here. So you see there's a distinction. Number 3, a progressive understanding of social purpose. Now, whether you're really active politically, socially, in groups, in institutions, in industries or fields of study or religious organizations or not, whether you're someone who is really actively involved in the news cycle and pays attention, or you're someone that has to kind of guard their serenity, whatever your orientation is to the existence of the collective unfolding, in other words, there is usually a sense during a Jupiter transit, even for people who only pay a little bit of attention to that more social collective unfolding, that there is purpose behind how it's happening, behind why it's happening, that can give us faith even in dark times as we perceive it, or that can give us a sense of the meaningfulness of our participation if we're people who are very inspired to be maybe socially or politically or culturally active in a group. So that progressive understanding is different for each person. And I think it often boils down to, sometimes introverts versus extroverts have different ways of being involved in the world, or people who are more, they have maybe a dharma that's here to participate in the collective arena or not. Whatever the case might be, though, watch for that progressive understanding of social purpose to unfold. And I think that gives us, at the very least, that gives us a trust that there's no mistakes here. People make mistakes, right? And we do all sorts of stuff that's really hard to understand. But the flow and direction of life itself, historically, socially, collectively, has meaning and purpose. This is also why Jupiter is not necessarily easy, because if there's anything that tests our faith, it's the questioning of why bad things happen to good or innocent people, for example, or why certain social or historical atrocities and imbalances and injustices and hatred and all sorts of things exist. I'm not saying that you come up with some rosy, bury your head in the sand explanation for these things. It's more of a felt sense that history itself has meaning and direction behind it. And again, just like our personal lives, sometimes that the emergence of that felt sense happens through difficulties. That's why Jupiter's transits are not always easy. And in fact, sometimes Jupiter transits are like predictably involved in moments where people die. The reason for that, as far as I can tell as a counseling astrologer over the years, is that those moments are sometimes some of the most profound when it comes to redirecting the purpose or story of our lives and redirecting how and where we find meaning. There's nothing, in a sense, more renewing of our sense of faith, direction, and purpose than loss and the processing of loss of people we love. I don't say that to scare anyone. It's just the truth that Jupiter's often involved in death transits. And Liz Green talks about that in her book that she just wrote as well. Number 4, progressive understanding of purpose itself. Now, this is a little it's a little metaphysical, I guess. But one of the things that the I Ching teaches, that I Ching is a big part of my daily practice outside of astrology. And you guys know on the channel over the years, sometimes I bring it in. There's periods of time where I go through where it's like, oh, this is the I Ching channel too. And then there's times where it just kind of is more for me. It's been that way for a while now. But anyway, maybe it'll come back. But the I Ching is always like Taoism itself. As we continue to observe and watch how life's purpose, how personal purpose, social, collective, historical purpose is evolving and changing, and how our understanding of personal purpose, social purpose, life's purpose, it continues deepening and unfolding in our lives, we come to understand the personality of something divine, like that all of this meaning and purpose is the expression of something personal, of something that's also impersonal. That, like, I love, it's like the way that can be named is not the way, right? So I say this with that in mind, but it's like the Tao, that life has a way, and it has a purpose, and it has a logic, and it's poetic, and it's musical, but it's also like sensible and intelligent. It has almost like a calculus behind it. And that we develop some understanding of the intelligence of the way itself as we also observe the evolving of personal and social purpose, or just observing the purposefulness of nature in life itself. Then all of a sudden we come to reflect and draw more closely and intimately to this way. So Jupiter in Cancer is going to be doing that, just like Jupiter in any sign is doing that. Now, I think there are some ways that Jupiter in Cancer will help us to achieve a sense of purpose, or to understand life, personal, social purpose, or purpose itself. The unique ways that Jupiter in Cancer will do that will really take place through the feminine, watery sign of the moon. Jupiter is in its own way always doing this weaving of purpose and direction, but in the sign of Cancer, it will be so feminine, so lunar. So, for example, something to watch for in the year ahead will be that there are some things that there is no way to learn abstractly. You can only learn through the most embodied experiences. Now, let me give you an example of that from my own life, but I know that some of you may not relate to this, so please just extrapolate from it in a way that's useful. For me, there are certain things that I just couldn't understand about life until I became a parent. By saying that, I do not mean to say that everyone needs to be a parent. I don't believe that at all. But just for me personally, there were certain things I couldn't understand. Now, similarly, I would say that people who make that choice to not be a parent probably couldn't understand certain things about life without that contrasting experience. So it's relative, it's very subjective and personal. But that is the nature of Cancer: personal, subjective experience itself. Embodied experiences that are the only means by which you could come to understand something. This is because life itself is intimate and relational. It has to be understood through felt, living, connective, relational experiences in an animistic cosmos that is alive. That's the goddess's way. You don't get there purely through abstract reasoning. You can't just dissect and analyze things to get there. You have to live your way there. You have to be in the valley of life. You have to experience love and loss and joy and pain. You have to step into this embodied world. You can't bypass it. Jupiter in Cancer will deliver so many insights on the purpose of life, on our personal purpose, social purpose, on the deeper meaning of purpose itself, but it will do so through the gateway of living life, of embodied life, of felt experiences. Number 2, through devotion, nurturance, and care, the things that we care for will be the means by which we progressively deepen our understanding of our life's purpose, of the purpose of life itself, of social, historical, collective purpose. The vehicle of nurturance, devotion, care, whether it's a plant or a person, whether it's a business or it's your own body or your own psychology or your friendships or a community, what we nurture and care for will be the vehicle through which we come to feel more deeply that life is purposeful. Through deepening emotional intelligence, I can't sit here and pretend to understand, what emotional intelligence is. I only have a relative amount of it, right? And all of us listening are, I imagine, the same way. Some of you are probably so emotionally intelligent, and but still, I think there's always room for all of us to grow, to become more attuned to the environment. One thing that I love about animals, and this is such a year in which the wisdom of the embodied world of nature itself can speak, is that animals are so sensitive instinctually to feelings, right? And we have 2 mastiffs, and if you know anything about guardian dog breeds like mastiffs, they're so emotionally sensitive. Just if I'm in a bad mood, let's say, they will be disturbed. They will come around and get into like slightly protective mode, like, is everything safe here? Is everything okay? I think it's easy for a lot of us because of how busy we are. And, I don't mean to, I'm on social media as much as anyone else and, get stuck on my phone probably like all of you do, but it's easy to dissociate. And when we dissociate mentally or through technology or just staying busy, we miss out on all of the beautiful connection that exists in a more present and felt experience of life. And my dogs, I notice, constantly bring me back to that towards the end of the day when I'm like shutting down for the day. and I get around them and I notice that they're like, where the fuck have you been? Sorry. That just flew out of my mouth. Where have you been, space cadet? So yeah, they bring me back to my body. So anyway, whatever the case may be, I think this is a year in which purpose, meaning, direction will unfold as we allow for ourselves to be creatures of greater emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, paying attention to subtlety, paying attention to the body. Its wisdom is vital. Number 4, through the I love it when I just randomly drop a swear word because I wasn't even expecting it, just came out of my mouth, and then I think it's funny. Through the feminine relating principle. So I was mentioning this a little bit earlier when I talked about embodied experience itself. I think that there's one of the things that the sign of Cancer always offers us is the idea that my purpose, my meaning, my direction only has as much value as I've invested my meaning and purpose in the meaningful purpose and direction of others that I have beautiful, sweet bonds with. Now, the classic example of that is family, but God knows that's only probably the medium for some of us out there, especially given how much divorce there has been and how much pain there is around family. I've seen it so much over my career. But the ideal, I guess, the archetypal sense of this is like family or marriage or close friendship. But let's get beyond that and just say those are nice images that are very Cancerian, but it's really any place in which meaningful, sensitive connection and bonds with other people promote within us the distinction and deepening of our own individual purpose. I think we're social animals. And again, I think of the cosmos as a living being. Its purpose is dependent upon the relationship of its parts with its other parts. I think that we fulfill the purpose of the cosmos when we don't think of our own individual purpose as existing in a vacuum, but as existing in supportive, beautiful, deepening connections with other beings. That is the feminine relating principle that Jupiter in Cancer may really amplify and augment for us. Now, finally, through the juxtaposition between the material and the spiritual. Well, I've been saying a lot about embodied experience and sort of standing for it here. I want to also mention that if we are so immersed in the material world, in relationships, in the body, that we forget that we are eternal beings, one of the dark sides of the sign of Cancer is the clutching, the holding, the attachment that gets complicated. Codependence or neediness are words that are, sort of stereotypically associated with Cancer, especially when Cancer is getting poked fun of in like a social media meme or something, right? I think though that there's something to that. It's not, people don't say that for no reason. And so as we go, there will be a way in which the world experience the feminine relating principle, the deepening of emotional intelligence, devotion, nurturance, care, embodied experience itself become vehicles for enhancing our sense of direction and purpose. But along the way, we have to be sure that we're remembering, I'm also an eternal being. I'm a spirit soul that has probably lived lifetimes before and has more that will come along. And so how do I move through all of these deep, embodied, attached, connected experiences that have to be that way to deliver their fruits, while also not getting lost in them, while not falling asleep in them or forgetting my divine nature? This is why the sign of the moon is also associated with remembrance of each other, remembrance of the mother for the child, remembrance of the soul for its source. That's also important to keep in mind because Jupiter in Cancer can turn up the volume on the worldly things, family, marriage, home, moving, emotional bonds. And those things are so felt and so present in the material sense. We just don't want to turn up the volume on those things so loud that we lose sight of that eternal. Just a little bit of the, remember in teleology, we still have an ology, a logia, right? A logos. We have this experience is meant to also give us just a slight amount of like healthy detachment while we're also deepening these very healthy, bonded, connected states, so that we we don't want to develop like anxious attachment, for example. It's a kind of a phrase, in relational theory these days, that we could say we want to try to avoid while Jupiter's in Cancer. So anyway, I hope this has been a useful meditation on Jupiter and Jupiter in Cancer. We'll have more as the week goes on. I hope you're having a good day. Stick around after I sign off to tune in for a 12-minute video on the upcoming course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. We have a great community at NORWAC. There were like 50, 60 students that all got together. Our staff got together. We got to meet in person some people for the first time. It was fantastic. That's a conference that takes place in the Northwest each year. Anyway, I'd love to meet new people and hope you'll consider coming out for the program starting on June 22nd. All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology that begins at the end of June. June 22nd is our starting date. I'm going to take you over to the course page to tell you more about the program and what you will learn while you are in it. So here we go over to the Nightlight Astrology website. You can find this at nightlightastrology.com. Click on the courses tab, go to the first year course. Now this program is ideal for people who maybe have a little bit of background already in astrology. Maybe you've done some studying on your own independently, taken some courses or webinars and workshops, but you're looking to deepen your understanding of astrology. And maybe Hellenistic astrology in particular has been calling to you. I'll tell you more about what Hellenistic astrology is in a minute, but on the first year course page, you're going to find everything that the course includes. I want to make the structure of the course clear first, and then at the end, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons that I think anyone might have for studying astrology, and you can see if you check any of those boxes. First of all, there are 30 classes on the year. It's just a little under a year-long program with 30 webinars. Every webinar is 2 to 3 hours long, including a lively Q&A and conversational section after we finished our lesson for the day. Each of those lessons I lead personally through live webinars, so you can attend those live. If you want to follow along at your own pace in your own time, on your own schedule, you can always look at the recordings and take those in. And I'm going to show you what the class page looks like so you can see how you can interact with the course as uniquely and creatively as you want to. But you can either attend the live webinars or listen to the recordings or audio or video. In between major units of study within those 30 classes, we have separate classes outside of the 30 classes that are essentially tutoring sessions led by our staff, our course directors. We have 3 of them for our first year program, 3 tutors that help me guide every single class you're in and lead study sessions, and are also staffing an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions, look at charts, practice what you're learning with all of your classmates and with tutors there to help you. They'll always answer questions within a business day. So it's a really well-staffed, well-structured program. In between those major units of study and the breakout sessions, we also have guest speakers that come in throughout the year that you get free access to. The recordings are archived for you in your class folders. So you're getting people within our curriculum. And you're also getting to visit with some astrologers who are outside of the Nightlight School, but we really admire their work, and so we bring them in. You also have a ton of bonus material. With every lesson, we have recommended quizzes, study guides, optional reading. And that allows people who are really, really, intense, deep, like studious types to go as far as you want to with the material, while other people who are maybe, content to take things in at, just kind of taking in the classes, that's there for you too. So you can kind of go as deeply as you want to. The class, as the year goes on, goes through major units of study in ancient Hellenistic astrology. So if you're not familiar with ancient Hellenistic astrology, this is the earliest form of horoscopic astrology. This is where the astrology that you've probably learned today comes from originally. And that makes some of its features unique. Like, for example, ancient astrologers utilized whole sign houses. We study why they used whole sign houses, how they used them, and we study the why behind really everything: houses, signs, planets, aspects, dignities, essential and accidental dignities, delineation approaches. How do you read and predict within a natal chart. All of those theoretical areas of astrology, we not only learn how to do, but we learn the why behind it. And this is what I think people find most empowering about the course, is that ancient astrology really helps to give you the rationale for everything so that you have the insight available to go off script. What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning about a sign, Aries or Taurus or a Gemini, something like that. Ancient astrology won't just give you a list of the adjectives or keywords or descriptions of, say, a sign or a planet. It will give you an underlying philosophical explanation that then allows you to extrapolate from it the kinds of lists that you read in textbooks, which means you'll have an understanding of why everything on a list in a textbook is there in the first place. And you'll also have the insight and creativity available to add things to the list that are a part of your own unique intuition and contribution to astrology. And this is what ancient astrologers wanted students of astrology to learn, the why behind everything. So this is a class where, even though you're seeing things like planet signs, houses, dignities, aspects, and you're like, oh, I've already learned about those things. Not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology. I don't mean to sound condescending, but like, truly, most people's experience coming through this program is, wow, I had no idea all that I didn't know about the roots of everything that I've understood thus far about astrology. So it really is about digging into the philosophical core of why we do everything. And then you have greater intuitive and creative capacity as an astrological craftsman or craftswoman. So anyway, that's a brief explanation of why I think Hellenistic astrology is important. Not to mention that ancient astrology was really focused on our ability to accurately describe and predict things in the realm of karma, fate, and destiny, whereas modern astrology's hallmark and strength is psychological depth. And so when you put the two together in our program, which is why it's called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, I think you have something really special. So on that note, you can see everything that we cover here. So there's a video with some of our alumni you can watch. Everything is there on the page. Now, there are 5 reasons that I want to touch on briefly before I tell you about your payment options and need-based tuition. These are 5 reasons to study astrology that if you mark any of these boxes, especially if you mark several of them, then I think it's a good indication that you might be ideal for this program, might be an ideal fit. So the first one is, if you find that astrology has become a part of your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly spiritual practice, it is a part of how you lead an inner life, then there is nothing more empowering than deepening your connection to that language, because that puts you more in the driver's seat. It's always good to have astrologers that you rely on, teachers that you listen to, get a little objective perspective, especially when you're looking at your own chart through a reading. But there's really nothing more empowering than learning to speak the language at a deeper level for yourself. And if that calls to you, if you want to understand things and be able to speak more confidently and clearly about this sacred language that you love, and this is a great reason to take a structured program. Number 2 is that you feel called to read charts for people. And look, not everyone who takes our programs is on a professional track, but we have 4 years worth of professional training programs at Nightlight that will prepare you to read professionally for others if that's the path that you're on. Maybe you don't even know if you're on that path. That's fine too. Many people take our programs just for the sake of their own personal enrichment, and again, to be kind of more in the driver's seat with respect to your astrological journey. You have more of an understanding. You can be more confident in reading symbols and experiencing transits with your own understanding that you've cultivated. But sometimes people want to read for other people. This will definitely set you up to do that. We have a certification track where you can take exams at the end of every year. They're optional. You don't have to if you're not on that level of interest. Number 3, you have done a lot of self-study. You've heard things from here and there, but you're looking to bring it all together. It is overwhelming to study astrology on your own. So if you want organization, structure, and coherence, what you're getting in this program is going on 15 years of training astrologers, 15 years of developing curriculum that has in mind the overwhelm that many people experience. And this program is structured year 1, year 2, year 3, however far you want to go with our curriculum, to give you an organized, structured, coherent way of understanding the history and language of astrology from both ancient times to modern times, in all of the vastness that the field includes. And also, as we go, we want to give you the confidence that you are a part now of an astrological lineage. Astrology has always been practitioner-based. coming through Nightlight, you are going to have the opportunity to feel aligned with a lineage. If you like my work, if you feel aligned with the way I speak the language, then this might be a good reason to come study with us. Now, if you're seeking the why behind things, if you're like, yeah, that's interesting, I get it, I understand, but why? Why signs? What's the difference between a sign and a house? Why do they ever come up with a sign and a house? What's the distinction philosophically? Why does Mars represent this? Why does Mars in this sign represent that? If you are someone who feels empowered by understanding the why behind things, you are going to love this program, because that's how I am as a teacher. That's how I am as a person. And that's what this program is really all about. Number 5, you are looking for astrological community. Look, I think Nightlight is unique in terms of the kind of warmth, acceptance, safety, and inclusiveness that our community includes intellectually, spiritually. We are really pride ourselves on being a peaceful kind of family. I'm a Cancer, right? So it's kind of a family-oriented environment. So anyway, I will end it there. If you check any of those boxes, you may want to consider studying with us. Now, I'm going to take you over to 2 things. I want to show you the dashboard. So here is the Thinkific page. You're going to join this. And on your dashboard, you're going to find any courses that you've enrolled in at Nightlight. And there are many, so you may end up in being involved in multiple courses. And you'll find that they're all there on your dashboard. Click on one of them and it will take you in. You're going to find that on the left-hand side, there's orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar, all the technical stuff you need to know when you join the course. And then you're going to find that there's, when you go through the lessons, that the lesson includes the video, the audio, the slides, the transcripts, the Q&A box text if you couldn't make it live and see what people were talking about, flashcards, homework, a bonus PDF with all sorts of additional recommended reading, bonus videos, additional video links for bonus material. So every single time that you want to visit something within the course, everything is nicely organized. So you can see here, I'm going to pause this before it starts going, but you can embed the video right there. It's embedded and you can watch it. And then if you wanted to, you could also, right here, you could also download the video and watch it on your own device. And that's same for the audio as well. And then as you go, you'll see all of the lessons are laid out. The study sessions are also recorded if you can't make those live. So everything is nicely arranged on the website for you. And that makes it a course that if you wanted to take 3 years to accomplish, you could take 3 years to accomplish. If you want to take it for the sake of getting certified, you have the full year plus an additional year to take the exam. So, 2 years total that we give people if you're on a professional track. But most people complete the program in a year. And a lot of people, over 50% of our students go on to our year 2 and then our year 3 and horary programs as well. Now, final thing I'm going to show you is right here. You're going to find, here is the enrollment options at the bottom of the first year course page. Again, this is at nightlightastrology.com, and you're going to click on the first year course, go to the bottom. The early bird payment saves you several $100s off the cost of the course. That's available till May 15th. Early bird installment plan saves you on the installment plan, regular cost of the course. That's also only available until May 15th. And then need-based tuition. All of our programs include a need-based option where we give you a sliding scale and we say, you pick your monthly tuition number within this sliding scale, which is greatly reduced off the normal tuition price. That is for people who are on a fixed or limited income, receiving disabilities, single mom, whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying astrology. So you don't have to feel any shame. If that is you, if you need help, if you want to take this, but you need to make it work within a tight budget, we get it. Times are tough right now. We don't think people should be priced out of studying a sacred subject like astrology. So we've been offering need-based pricing for 15 years. Nightlight is a donation-based school. It started that way. We have a sliding scale, so it's kind of like donation. You get to choose your rate anyhow. So if that's something that will help you, please use it. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it gave you a really deep and comprehensive introduction to what the course is all about and why you might find it exciting to come study with us starting at the end of June. So any questions you have about the program as you're visiting the course, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be glad to talk about anything that you have questions about. We are here and we have a wonderful staff of people at Nightlight who will be a part of your learning experience and are all glad to help you. All right, that's it. We'll see you again later. Bye.